All right, hello out there, everybody. I'm just getting this live stream up and running, so I'll be checking here for a few minutes just to kind of watch and make sure everything's running smoothly before I get started. Plus, we'll give some time for everybody to get in. All right, I think we're going live now. All right, so I see a couple of you guys are watching. If you are here and you can hear me, go ahead and just say something on the chat and let me know that. I just want to make sure that everything's running smoothly before I get started. Something on the Hello, Sir Rommel. Good morning to you wherever you may be, sir. It is 8 p.m. here where I live. Twitch is the next step. I will be doing Twitch the next time I do one of these. I'm going to try to do one every weekend. And between now and then, I do plan to get Twitch set up. Haven't gotten that far yet. We are in the process of packing up to move to a new house where I'm going to have a lot better setup to be able to do these things. And right now, everything's just kind of crazy, and I'm going by the bare minimum of what I can do and get away with. About a month or so ago, somebody suggested that I needed to have a war hat for these battles. And I knew that somewhere I had this Confederate hat that I got as a teenager at the Gettysburg battlefield. So I'm wearing it tonight, and because I'm wearing that, I have to be the CSA in this battle. I know I did Confederates when I did my live stream last week, but I felt like it just would be wrong to wear this hat and be the Union. So next time I live stream an Ultimate General Civil War, I will do the Union side of things. But for today, I am fighting as the Confederates. Thank you, sir. Thank you. We're pretty excited about it, but there's a lot of work to be done. Never tried to move with 3 kids before, so we'll see how that goes. I'll give it about 2 or 3 more minutes. We'll let a couple more people get in here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. In addition to packing up for a move in a couple weeks, we also have 2 very sick kids out of our 3, so it's been an interesting week around here. Yes, Das Confederate States. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. As always, as I did last, I shouldn't say as always, it's only the second one of these I've done. If you have questions or comments or just anything at all you want to throw out there, go ahead and use it. I'll be following the chat the best I can while I'm playing. I will admit up front, I am not nearly as well versed in the history of the Second Battle of Bull Run, or as Manassas as it was called for the Confederates, as I was with Gettysburg, which I played last week. But I know a little bit here and there. I've been to the battlefield, and we'll kind of talk through some of that as we go along. But please feel free to chime in if you have questions, or if you say, hey, you need to watch your left flank, or whatever it might be. Go ahead and use that. Hearts of Iron 4 series as Ireland. Yeah, actually, I've played as Ireland on my own before, and it was really cool. I enjoyed it. It does present some pretty unique challenges being an island nation, but yeah, I'd absolutely consider doing that. I'm thinking about my next one being Romania, but I haven't really completely decided on that yet. And yes, thank you, Forward, for the hat compliment. Been looking for it for weeks because somebody suggested I should wear it, and as I was packing up stuff for our move tonight, I found it. I probably haven't worn this hat since I was 13 years old, but I busted it out for the battle tonight. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Folks can jump in as they can. So as you can see, this is on Brigadier General difficulty. I wanted to keep it as historically accurate as possible with the numbers, which I believe Brigadier should reflect that. I'm outnumbered almost 2-1. And obviously I'll get the reinforcements from Longstreet when he comes in on my right, but I will not have them to start. So you had to rage quit playing this battle. I get that. I absolutely get that. Sir Rommel, I have played the Kaiserreich mod. It's fantastic. I love it. I'm definitely going to revisit that in a series at some point. All right, so it seems that Pope fell into our trap. He mobilizes his forces to attack Bulgaria. Well, Bulgaria is usually the first country that I conquer as Romania. I usually look to the south first. We spotted a large formation of infantry advancing from this direction behind Matthews Hill. So here's the thing with the Second Battle of Bull Run. It should have been an easy Union victory if, like many of the battles, the general hadn't completely botched it, in this case, General Pope. Now, my typical strategy playing as the Confederates on this battle is to pull everybody back as close to the objective as possible. There's only one objective in this battle. And as the Union, if you can just swing around here and hit that objective, you win pretty easily. So I'm going to try to keep my forces as close together as possible because I'm outnumbered 2-1. I want to cause him to cover as much ground as possible to get to me, and give myself the most flexibility as far as having reinforcements to back up anybody who might break. And I just got to hang on for dear life until those reinforcements arrive. Yeah, this one has a lot of similarities to Fredericksburg, just because of the challenge of holding against overwhelming forces, but having a really strong position in the process. I do enjoy this battle as well. It can get a little hairy, but I think on Brigadier General, I should be okay. When I played this on Legendary mode recently, I think I had about 38,000 to his 60,000. So the numbers were pretty similar. I had a little bit more men than I do here. But I'm guessing that these troops are more experienced. I've got a lot of 3-star units that I didn't have when I played in Legendary mode. I'm going to hold my guns back for now, just because I don't want his artillery to tear me up. The Pope, how many divisions does he got? Yes, a quote from Stalin in World War II. Pope's an interesting fellow because by and large, most people don't know a lot about him because this was really the one and only major command he had during any of the battles. And as I mentioned in some of my other videos, and I visited his grave recently, I think it's in St. Louis, and I mentioned this then, Abraham Lincoln actually knew Pope's family before the war, and he was very familiar with them as being a group of people who tended to brag about themselves a lot. And thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. This is what I've found to be the best strategy, especially when you're heavily outnumbered. When Lincoln brought Pope east to take command of an army, in this case I think it was called the Army of Virginia, he was reminded that the popes tended to be people who thought very highly of themselves. And I think Shelby Foote in the Civil War series by Ken Burns actually mentions this quote, that Lincoln said, "I've always known the popes to be braggarts, but I don't see any reason why a great braggart shouldn't also be a great general." Well, in that case, it turned out not to be the case. But Pope, actually, when he arrived and took command of this army, kind of rubbed his generals the wrong way right off the bat when he basically said something to the effect of, well, I'm from the West where we're used to actually winning battles, or, we usually see the backs of our enemies, something to that effect. Well, of course, he leads one and only one battle, and he gets his tail kicked in by a force that he should have been able to defeat. So I'm gonna try to park some additional units behind me here. I want to make sure that I've got a second line to give myself a little bit of flexibility. Yeah, charging after the reinforcements arrive. Supplies at the bottom. Thank you. Yes. Oh, I'm not a good attention to detail person. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that. Yeah, the buildings in the north, no. Or not even... one of the problems with the fortifications in a lot of these battles is that they're so long that they cause you to stretch your line, and you're almost better off just to hold your normal position than to get into those fortifications. But yeah, charging after the reinforcements arrive is a good idea. Once you get those reinforcements over here, I usually try to advance them, and then I'll bring these guys down if I'm in position to do that. All right, let's take a look here real quick and make sure that I've got these guys where I want them. Because it's going to be quite a while before he attacks. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward, because he waits until he gets most of his force into position before he launches the attack. So I've definitely got some time. Oh, here he comes. He's going to come at me. It's a good thing I pulled those supplies when I did. Another moment or two, and Beardsley's dismounted infantry might have hit me. I'm going to move these guys up a little bit to get them into cover. And I'm going to cover my flank here too. The greatest victory for the CSA in the war, General Hux. I think for me personally, I know it's not real creative to say this, but I've got to go with Chancellorsville. What Lee and Jackson did there, they defied all normal rules of warfare. You don't divide your army in the face of a superior force. And they did it not once, but twice. But just off the top of my head, that's what I would say. But of course, like any great victory, there's also a cost. And in that case, the cost was specifically Stonewall Jackson. That he tried to push it too much that night because it took so long to get their flanking attack into position, and it cost him his life. And I think that was kind of the last death knell of the eventual fall of the Confederacy, because without him at Gettysburg, they were done for. I don't think they ever would have won the war anyway. The only way I see the Confederates could have possibly won the war was if Lincoln wasn't reelected in 1864, and some things had to really break their way for that to happen. Lee knew that Pope and McClellan really disliked each other, and made the correct assumption that McClellan would make no attempt to support Pope. Forward 1862, you're absolutely right about that. We're talking about two guys with egos, and those egos got the best of them. Yeah, he could have got some troops up the Chesapeake and supported him. Yeah, honestly, Nathan, McClellan's long objective, he was definitely scared to fight. I feel like the Union's best chance to win the war early was in 1862 in the Peninsula Campaign. McClellan had about as large an advantage as the Union had at any time in the war until probably late in the war in the East. And he refused to push that advantage because time and time again he convinced himself that the Confederates had way more men than they really did. Now, some people have argued that Pinkerton and others let McClellan down by reinforcing that notion that he had a larger force facing him than he really did. Whether that's the case, I don't know, but I think McClellan definitely had an opportunity there that he didn't take advantage of. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward here because not a lot's going to happen until he gets his full force into position here. Jerusalem Plank Road, you're talking Sir Rommel. Trying to remember here. That is Petersburg, correct? Part of the Petersburg campaign. Yeah. There were some battles that, a lot of people don't recognize or know enough about some of those battles of the war that were really bloody and really costly, but don't get the focus and attention that a lot of other battles like Gettysburg or Antietam or even Cold Harbor, for example, get. Yes, McClellan, Jerry Brannigan was absolutely his own worst enemy. I think I've mentioned this quote before. There's a quote. I don't know if Lee ever actually said it or if it was just in the movie Gettysburg. But there's a quote that Lee says in the movie Gettysburg. He says, "To be a great soldier, you need to love the army. But to be a great general, you need to be willing to order the death of the thing that you love." And that is the big difference between someone like McClellan and someone like Grant. McClellan loved the army and he was beloved by the army. And he was very good at training that army, but he seemed really unwilling to commit the army fully for whatever reason. Maybe it was because he couldn't stand the sight of seeing the men die. I don't know what it was. But Grant, on the other hand, you could argue was the exact opposite of that. He knew that he had the resources, he had the manpower, that what he needed to do was just bludgeon the Confederates into submission, and that's what he did. And I think he was rightly considered a butcher by a lot of people, even in the North. Mrs. Lincoln hated Grant for what he did and thought him to be a butcher, like a lot of people did. And there's an argument to be made for that. But he knew what needed to be done to win the war. Grant wasn't a great tactician, but he understood the situation better than most, I think. All right, here they come. Now, I don't think they're going to attack me here. They're just basically going to hang out. I've got Lee back here. This is probably one of Robert's sons, or his nephew maybe. I don't know what I'm going to do with those guys yet, but I'll watch for an advantage to use them. Some guys are having a debate saying General Hooker didn't get a chance to fight Lee appropriately. That he got fired unfairly. Well, I think Hooker would probably have been the first one to admit that he screwed up at Chancellorsville. Whether he might have continued down that path, I don't know. I'm honestly surprised he didn't get more of a chance to prove himself. It's interesting that after Hooker was dismissed, I believe Lincoln's first choice for command of the Army was actually Reynolds. And I think Reynolds declined that command. And then basically General Meade was voluntold for the position. He was ordered to take the position. He wasn't given the opportunity to decline it. If I understand right, I think that's how that went down. Oh yeah, Hooker definitely had opportunities that he didn't take advantage of, and he had the manpower, he had the numbers. Please let Lee take on Fighting Joe again. Yes. So we got a unit here that's kind of exploring and not doing much. He's going to wait till he gets his full force in, and then he's going to come at me with everything he's got. Right. Yeah, Sir Rommel, I think that's a very accurate description of the difference between Grant and McClellan. Thank you. Oriole, about a month or two ago, somebody suggested that I needed to have a war hat to wear when I was fighting these battles, and I knew that somewhere I had one. I actually got this when I was 13 years old at the Gettysburg battlefield, and didn't know where it was, but I knew it was somewhere in my house, and we're in the middle of packing to move to a new house. It's about 3 miles away, and I stumbled upon it today when I was packing up some things down here in my basement. So felt that I had to wear it tonight. Got my I Love History shirt that I got at in Washington, D.C. It's got Abraham Lincoln's signature here, so I've actually got a little bit of both. I got Lincoln and a Confederate Kepi hat. All right, there's Krzyzanowski, Szynovsky, however you want to pronounce it. There's a lot of different ways. I've had this discussion before. He was Polish. He commanded a brigade at Gettysburg, and I've read that he was actually put up for promotion to brigadier general, which had to be approved by Congress, and because nobody could pronounce his name, they didn't put forth his promotion. So let's see who else we have here. We've got Birney. David Birney was, I believe, a division commander under Hancock at Gettysburg. Robinson actually took command, I think, I could be wrong about that. No, it was Newton that took command of the 1st Corps at the end of Gettysburg. Robinson, I think, was one of the division commanders at Gettysburg in the 1st Corps. So, Oriole Bird, I assume you are in Maryland, if I'm correct on that. I'm just curious what part of Maryland you live in. He's coming over this way. He's going to try to shift and get around me. Some ski, yes. All right, we're going to go ahead and fast forward again because this is just one of those battles that takes forever while you wait for the action to begin. Yeah, the AI always goofs. It's funny because sometimes the AI will do some really smart things, and sometimes I find myself thinking the AI in this game is better than most. It's certainly better than a game like the Total War series. Yes, Chantilly. I think Chantilly was like September 1st. It was right at the end of this battle and right before Antietam, and that is where Phil Kearny was killed. I think it was a real bad rainstorm, and he ended up riding into the Confederate lines. Phil Kearny was one of the few people who I believe was actually a general before the war started. So was Albert Sidney Johnston. Sorry, I don't read Arabic. I assume that's what that is. Western Maryland, about 15-minute drive to Antietam, about 45 minutes to Gettysburg. Very cool, very cool. Yes, Forward 1862. I think some of the updates have improved the AI, especially in Legendary mode. He surprises me sometimes. As many times as I've played these battles, I occasionally find myself still getting surprised by what he does. Yes, Stephen, I was surprised by that as well. It's actually what I call mounted infantry. You might call them dragoons from other wars, because these are actually guys who you can dismount and fight on foot. And the difference is that they've got this little gun symbol. Traditional cavalry doesn't have that. They just have the horse symbol there. So these guys can be dismounted and fight on foot. And you can see, let's take a look there. They're armed with Sharps 1855s. And they actually form a longer line, as you can see, when they dismount. So I'm actually going to hold off my artillery here. I don't want to use up all my supply. As you can see, they're already kind of running low on ammo. So it's going to quiet things down here. We're going to go ahead and speed things back up again. Yes, Oriole, I wish I lived closer to a lot of the battlefields. Actually, the closest site of historical significance to the Civil War that I live near, and I pass it all the time, is I am not far from where John Hunt Morgan surrendered his command. In fact, I'll be there tomorrow. One of the furthest north an engagement took place during the Civil Wars in a little town called Salineville, Ohio. That's where my church is. And it's in Columbiana County, Ohio, which is just north of the West Virginia Panhandle. And every time I go down there, I pass the spot near a little town called West Point, Ohio, which is where Morgan actually surrendered. Alright, so we still got a while to wait here for the Union. That's the one thing about this battle, is I guess I didn't think about it when I chose this one for my live stream. There's a lot of dead time as you wait for the Union to get his force into position and finally attack. But it gives us a chance to talk a little bit. Send the cav all the way around to the south to destroy and plunder. Sir Rommel, that's actually not a bad idea at all. And I think I may take you up on that suggestion. Especially with a force the size of this one. You don't normally get that. Fort Phil Kearny, very cool, in Wyoming. Wyoming is one of, I think, only 8 states that I still have not been to. So hopefully that will happen at some point. Forward 1862, that's cool. I very much want to visit Andersonville. I had 2 uncles who died there. One's got a marked grave, one's one of the unknown men who are buried there. And I've always wanted to visit Andersonville. I haven't visited the Chickamauga battlefield, but I've been to some of the others outside of Atlanta. Kennesaw Mountain, one of my ancestors fought there. I've been to the Marietta National Cemetery. I've got an uncle who's buried there. He was killed at Nickajack Creek. So I'm slowing things down here to the normal speed just so I can get these guys down and around. I got to be careful because I think he's probably got some troops down in here somewhere. I don't want to get too close to them. Yeah, Nathan Snell. I was actually at Antietam myself last year. I've got some videos if you haven't seen them from my time there. I was only there for a few hours, but it's a very cool place to visit. Alright, so he's starting to get his forces into position here. Once he makes his attack, I'll unleash all of my artillery again. I've still got one of my artillery units firing here. So you can see my supplies are almost out already. And that's mostly from the artillery firing. I should have been more careful with that. Alright, so I can't go after that artillery there because he's too close to that infantry regiment. Or brigade. He's actually getting into range of my infantry. Is he marching forward? Looks like he is. Okay. Let me look real quick here. These are 6-pound smoothbores, so I should probably move them up. Napoleon's here. And Napoleon's there as well. I'm actually going to move these ones over this way. I should have done that before. Alright, so now, I should have done this before because now I find myself in a situation where I can't really focus on the ride around at the moment. Although it looks like I'm drawing the attention of one of his infantry brigades. Alright, so he's just probing right now. He only sent 2. He sent Farnsworth and Leisure out. You can see how much his artillery's been firing. Alright, I think we should be good there for a little while. Yeah, you know, Sir Rommel, you're right. He doesn't always keep reserves. What I am worried about are new troops that are entering the field, his reinforcements. I don't know exactly where those are going to come up. Oh, man. So we have a unit who already has fallen back. Yeah, see here. That's what I was afraid of. He's got units coming up from this side. And I'm going to get myself caught. So I'm going to have to abandon that plan for now. I should have done that a whole lot sooner. Nathan, that would be the smart thing for him to do. That's actually how you win this battle quickly as the Union, is you give him a little bit here just to keep him honest, and then send a full force around this side and hit him and just roll up that side and hit that objective, which he's actually just taken, but he's not going to hold. And it looks like he's actually trying to focus a lot on this side. You can see how much he outnumbers me by right now. He's got 56,000 men to my 21,000. He's got me almost 3-1. And look at that. I just got surprised on my flank. I should have kept Lee over there. I probably can... I think I'm going to shift Dorsey Pender here over. I don't need to have a full-size brigade that big over on that side. Hello there. Surprise, surprise, Hiram Berdan. There's Berdan's sharpshooters, one of the first, one of the only Union regiments, forces during the Civil War who wore green uniforms. But they're going to cease to exist here in a minute. Assuming he doesn't manage to pull me too close to the infantry, which it appears he's doing at the moment. Hiram Berdan has surrendered. So much for those elite fighting forces. Alright, I'm going to dismount Lee and just have him hold the flank for now. No, he doesn't need reserves. If he throws everything he has at me, he will beat me. He won't throw everything he has at me. That's kind of what I'm counting on. He's going to act way too much like John Pope in this battle. So you can see Taliaferro is really heavily engaged here. He's got 1,400 kills, almost 1,500, 600 deaths. And my supplies are already out, and that's going to be a problem for me later in the battle, I'm afraid. But when my reinforcements come on my right flank, I'll send those supplies up to these guys. There's Poe. Going back. Schimmelpfennig's got a huge brigade. Yeah, Sir Rommel, you're absolutely right. If he would just throw everything in and be super aggressive here, he would win. I'm counting on him not doing that. Robert Roberts, let's see. It's actually telling me I have to, it's telling me it's holding this comment in review. Yeah, we'll show that. Better your men die in honest battle than die sitting on the two-hole outhouse with goo running down their legs like most Civil War soldiers. Yes, sir. Alright, here come the reinforcements. That actually wasn't as bad as I thought it might have been. Here comes Hood's Texas boys. Alright, I think this one's going to go down pretty smoothly. If you look at the casualties from the historical battle of Second Bull Run, really one-sided, which is amazing to me considering that on the first day of the battle the Union so heavily outnumbered the Confederates. But I'm thinking a lot of those casualties probably happened on day 2 when the reinforcements arrived and hit the Union on the Confederate right. Yeah, we got to get these supplies up. Taliaferro continues to be one of my most heavily engaged units. I'm actually going to merge him and Johnson here, make it a bigger force so they can stand toe-to-toe with some of these 2,000-man brigades. quarters men? That's a good question. Probably sitting on the outhouse, like Robert Roberts said. Alright, so we've definitely got some supply issues that have to be corrected quickly here. I'll get them where they're supposed to be once they get a little closer. Hey, look at this. Wait, time out, time out, time out. What is going on here? Alright, let's go ahead and grab those if I can. There may be a unit nearby. I can't believe his supplies are just right there like that. Imagine the reinforcements going Semper Fi, Semper Fi. Always faithful. Yes, Cynthia Diller, his aggressive conservatism will fail him. You're absolutely right. And that failed a number of Union generals. Hey, free supplies. All right, cool. I hear a melee attack happening. And right there it is. Now, we're going to have to get Dorsey Pender up here to support this. Oh, careful, careful, careful. That was a mistake on my part. I opened up my flank to that battery. The Soviet-style mass charge would work, but the AI is too stupid. You're right. My great-uncle fought in Korea. Same thing there. He saw those human wave attacks by the Chinese forces. Yeah, there are a number of battles that the Confederates won because the Union Army was not as aggressive as it needed to be. This is one of them. Antietam's another one. The Confederates didn't win Antietam, but the Union didn't win it either. And that could have been a big victory for McClellan if he had committed his troops more fully. Chancellorsville, Fredericksburg, if they hadn't waited as long as they did, and they had crossed before the Union got into position. Or before the Confederates got into position. Alright. We're in good shape now. He's not even hitting me over here on my left. Alright, so that's the end of that day. And now everything kind of resets. Yeah, Chickamauga's a hard battle. I would agree with that. That's definitely one of the harder battles, and that's actually historically the way it was. I think of all the battles in this game, the one that for me feels the most like it would have felt as a real general is Chickamauga. Because if you read the stories from Chickamauga, you read about generals who had no idea what was going on anywhere else in the battlefield because all they could see was what was right in front of them. And of course that battle turned on the fact that Rosecrans, the Union commander, thought he had a hole in his line that wasn't there because he couldn't see, and he created an actual hole in his line by trying to plug a hole that wasn't there. And it was all because of the terrain and not being able to see. And I really feel like that's what it feels like when you fight that battle in this game. People just appear where you don't expect them, and you can't see half of what's going on. So that's definitely a big one. Shiloh is challenging but winnable if you have enough men. I don't think it's easily winnable once you get to the harder difficulty like Legendary. Alright, so one of the things I don't like about this game is how they reset your troops after the first day's fight. And they put them back to where I guess they think you would have been. So now I've got to basically go back and put everybody back where they were before, or thereabouts. And honestly, when I play this on the campaign, I just sit back and hold the objective. I don't worry about trying to push the attack like it suggests for you to do. But because this is a live stream, I'll go ahead and press that attack just to make it more interesting. I don't think I've actually ever played the historic battle on this game. Maybe I have and I just don't remember it real well. Yeah, on Shiloh, if you've got enough men to do it, basically, a lot of these battles, I hate to say it, but you can kind of use the system against itself. More often than not, as long as you're holding the objective you need to win, at the last second when the time runs out, you win the battle. So there's a lot of battles where you can just rush your troops in to that last objective that's heavily fortified right at the last second. And as long as you're holding it when the time clock ticks down and you hit finish, you win the battle. Obviously, in real life, you couldn't do it that way because you'd get driven back. But in the campaign, sometimes that's what you have to do. Forward 1862, yes, I'm going to push this. I would not do this in a campaign because I would save my troops and be satisfied with the victory. But I'm definitely going to push this as far as I can. I'm going to wait, though, until I get my right flank down into here before I push down from my left. And that's going to take a little bit of time to have that happen. And as they get closer, I'll kind of line them up the way I want them. So some of you had asked me a while back about how to go about discovering your American Civil War ancestors, and I did a video about that earlier today. If you haven't already, you can check that out if that's something you're interested in. It's a little diversion from gaming, and I know it's not for everybody, but it was something folks have been asking about, so I took a little time to show just some little things you can do on some websites to do that, to find out more about your Civil War ancestors. There's a lot of information out there you can find out. Very personal, detailed information. So much so that as I was looking through the pension file of the brother of one of my ancestors, I had an ancestor named John Bailey who was actually in a Union Mounted Infantry unit, the 40th Kentucky. I actually had two ancestors in the 40th Kentucky. John Bailey and his son Wiley Bailey both served in the same company, Company C. And Wiley was killed in battle. And it was a battle called Clinch Mountain. And in reading the report, they actually described how Wiley had been killed by a shot that went through his shoulder and came out his thigh. And as I was reading that, and I'm thinking about them fighting on a mountain, you could kind of get the picture that they were charging up the mountain and that he had been fired on from down above. And that's why the bullet went into his shoulder and came out by his thigh, and that's how he'd been killed. And so just to have that vivid picture of how this relative of mine died was really interesting. And again, it was at a place that I otherwise would never have heard of. I'd never heard of a battlefield at a place called Clinch Mountain. And it was on a raid to a place called Saltville, Virginia, which was a place that the Confederates needed for their war effort. And so they sent this raid of mounted infantry from Kentucky to go deal with it. So it's going to take some time to get my flanking force into position here. When it resets, yeah, I think so. I believe that in other battles, the level of supply for your troops stays where it is. And so I think that's probably the case here as well. I'm actually going to send Lee all the way around so I can get him down here where the flanking attack is. Like you can see here, Early's still got a lack of ammo. I'm going to send some of these supplies up to help out over there. They're going to be needed more there than they are on this side. Plus I have a lot more supplies available to me. Over here anyway. Favorite troll setup is 2 divisions of cavalry and 2 divisions of regular infantry and cannons. Just do mini blitzes. Yes, absolutely. When it works out, when you've got an opportunity, I call them locusts. When you have 3 or 4 units of cavalry and you can just devour a unit that gets isolated by himself. It's a lot of fun to do that. I find myself wanting to press the space bar to see where my other units are ordered to deploy, like you can on Total War, but it doesn't work on this. Yeah, and one of the things that disappoints me about capturing like 4,000 men at First Bull Run like you did, Cynthia, is that you only get 1,000 of them. It used to be in the early days of the game. I know some of you were like me, were playing it when it was still in early release, and they made a lot of changes to the game. It used to be that however many you captured, you exchanged all of those, and you got that many men in return back into your force pool. And I think they ought to still do that until you get into 1864, when Grant put an end to prisoner exchanges. But that doesn't happen on this game, unfortunately. Yeah, so the problem here is trying to keep my artillery caught up with my infantry as it continues to move. So I imagine I'll run into some of his troops back here at the objective. Not a lot happening over here. He's still, to be honest with you, in hindsight, Second Bull Run's not one of the more exciting battles to watch in a video, but it was one of the ones that was suggested by somebody when I asked the question about what I should do for the live stream, so I thought I'd go with it. Alright, so you can see he's starting to pull his troops over here to deal with this threat. I'm going to keep this huge mounted infantry detachment right behind the line of infantry, just so I can look for opportunities with them. Yeah, you know, forward 1862, the time was, it was actually more economical to play as the Confederates because you captured so many free Union weapons that it was easier to equip the Confederates with up-to-date weapons than it was to equip the Union with it. But of course they nerfed that like they did a lot of things. So I'm going to hold... I don't want to move these guys too far forward just yet until I bottle some of these guys up. Yeah, Sir Rommel, that's a good strategy. I found on Legendary mode that I'm much more conservative, and once I know I'm going to hold the objective, I don't usually try to force the issue and cause myself to lose more men. Whereas, like, even on Brigadier General, I would push to try and completely destroy his army at every battle if I could. And it looks like he's starting to pull back now. And of course now here I have the issue of overlapping flanks, so I got to start shifting my right flank a little more due east. Or at least east as far as our orientation goes, if you assume up to be north. Alright. Looks like we finally ran into his line down here. Hey, there's General Meade himself. We were just talking about him. And here's General Armistead. I think it was Armistead's uncle, who was actually the commander of Fort McHenry during the infamous battle in 1812 that led to the writing of the Star-Spangled Banner. So I may have my work cut out for me here. I'm going to send some help down to deal with these guys. And I'm going to hold off on climbing up this hill and attacking those guys just yet. Been a while since I did this part of the battle. I usually just sit back and let them run away off into the distance. A system of buying fortifications, I like that. Or at the very least, be able to build them if you have time and you have troops that aren't really engaged for a while. Alright, let's overrun this battery. Yeah, this isn't the best situation for me here. I'm kind of outnumbered, or at least outgunned. I'm going to send the Texas Brigade over there to help. And I think I'll send Lee down there too. Yeah. No men and a ton of money, yeah. I hear that. Whoa, we got one guy that went way out in front of everybody else. He's probably screaming Leroy Jenkins, if any of you get that reference. Oh, wait, I said I wasn't going to do that. Let's hold these guys back. No, just stay where you are. We don't need to go switching places. Yeah, that would be nice to be able to see the range on the artillery a little better. Papa Stalin would be proud. Wasn't it Stalin who said that one death is like, I think it was one death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic, or something to that effect? Oh yeah, charging this hill, that would be a problem. I want to try and get around him. Take this one first. Oh, hey, I ran into his main line while I wasn't paying attention. And this is why I don't do this. Alright, so I have turned my back on these guys and I'm paying for it. Longstreet ready to attack. Longstreet has been attacking. Yeah, forward. That's the one I'm thinking of. I love how it tells you, quickly, secure Henry Hill, as though I somehow need that in order to win this battle. Because as you can see, I've already got victory. Hey, there's his giant mounted infantry unit to compete with mine. Oh, I'm getting some more cavalry. Excellent. Now I've got 2 giant cavalry units to play with. Although I haven't used them much so far. Yeah, mass assault requires mass micro, yes. Ah, I did it again. Darn it. Hello, skirmishers. It's really kind of overkill to send 4,000 to take out 148. Yeah. Oh, Drayton, you better lose another man real fast, man. 666 in your brigade. Alright, so here we go. He's kind of abandoned this hill now. A shameful display. Yeah. Thank you for the Total War quote there, Sir Rommel. I prefer to quote Monty Python in that situation. Do you think it would help if we run away more? Alright. Let's get them. And he broke, just like that. Didn't even get to have any fun with it. Time to watch canister shot devastate our men. Yeah, pretty much. Well, it looks like one of them is going to fall back. General Longstreet, get up there and lead the forces. Though you would never have done that. Although, I guess at this point he's only division commander. No, he's a corps commander. So yeah, he wouldn't have done that. Here they come. Maybe. Alright, let's see what kind of trouble we can get into back here. Now, this will be fun. Let's go ahead and park my artillery up here. Yes, artillery is definitely less effective Savage Gerbil in Napoleon Total War, American Civil War, than it is in this game. I've always been kind of disappointed in the effectiveness of artillery in that game. Though it looks really cool when you use it. I haven't played Shogun 2 yet, Sir Romo. I need to check that one out. I've been playing Attila. There's a medieval warfare mod for that I've really been enjoying. I've been trying to unite all the kingdoms of England and create one England. Oh man, I left Drayton out here by himself and he's paying for it. Alright. Let's take a risk. It shouldn't take more than a couple of seconds to gobble up these two brigades here, or these two batteries here. No. Course, turn that way. Ah! I wanted to get him in there, and he went up and opened his flank to Meade. So this is where you have to be careful on these battles, because he could sneak some cavalry back there, take the objective, and win the battle. So I'm going to just park a small brigade back there. Oh, yeah. My left flank's got a bit of an issue here. This is why I don't do this in the real game. Way too many unnecessary casualties. Yeah, this is a bloody mess doing it this way. Don't like it at all. Plus, I'm being kind of sloppy. I'm not really paying attention to detail like I probably normally would. Alright, let's go deal with these guys. Yeah, I hear you, Gerbil on the Savage Gerbil on the artillery. I agree completely. Well, I'd say this bloody mess has finally started to wind down a little bit. So he's starting to advance now. He's going to see what he can do to get back at me. Alright, yeah, I'm going to fall back and regroup, and I should have done that to begin with. He's just way too strong on that left side. I'm going to merge some of these units together. Hey, thank you, Savage Gerbil. I was mentioning earlier, I don't know if you were here for that or not, but I got this actually at the gift shop in the Peterson House Museum, which is right next to the house where President Lincoln died, across the street from Ford's Theater. Great new museum. They just opened up in the last couple of years, and it just felt like it was a shirt I had to have. Yeah, battle plan never survived the first shot in a battle. So it's kind of interesting, a little off topic, but not completely. Some of the connections that exist between famous people of different wars and one another. For example, George S. Patton, who obviously was one of the most well-known and most interesting people of World War II. His grandfather was a colonel in the Confederate Army. His uncle was killed in Pickett's charge at Gettysburg. Walter Tazewell Patton, I believe he was played by Ted Turner in the movie. He takes a shot in the chest as he's crossing the fence as George S. Patton's uncle. Patton's also a direct descendant of General Hugh Mercer, who was one of George Washington's closest generals, and who I believe was killed about a week after the Battle of Princeton. Or no, he a week after Trenton, he was killed, I think, in the Battle of Princeton. But Hugh Mercer is one of Patton's ancestors. So we captured some of his skirmishers. Obviously, you had, I think it was Paul Revere's grandson was one of the Union colonels who was killed during the war. I think. I could be wrong about that. You've got Patrick Henry's descendants fighting in the Confederate Army. Richard Taylor was the son of Zachary Taylor, and he was a lieutenant general in the Confederate Army. I believe, well, let's see, General MacArthur, who received the Medal of Honor during World War II, his father, Arthur MacArthur, won the Medal of Honor in the Union Army as a teenage officer, I want to say at Lookout Mountain, but it was in that campaign toward Atlanta. First time a father and son received the Medal of Honor. The second time a father and son received the Medal of Honor that I'm aware of would be Teddy Roosevelt, Sr. and Jr. Jr. got it first. Teddy Roosevelt Jr. was an assistant division commander on D-Day who, despite being told not to, eventually pushed and was given permission to land with his troops. I think it was at Utah Beach. He ended up dying of a heart attack not long after, but he won the Medal of Honor, and then later on, Teddy was given the Medal of Honor for his actions during the Spanish-American War. Make some interesting choices. Okay. It would be, so Nathan, it would be neat if the next Ultimate General centered around the American Revolutionary War. I've talked about this before. There was some discussion about what the next Ultimate General was going to be. And I know there was discussion about it either being the American Revolution or being Napoleonic. My understanding is that it's going to be Napoleonic War, but I don't quote me on that, but I think that's my understanding, is that's what they're going to do next. So, an interesting choice, huh? Let's just charge everybody up then, just because we can. General Rommel, let me go back to that quote, or to what you said there. A weekly campaign live stream. Somebody suggested that yesterday. Maybe it was you. Suggested that I play a campaign and do that. Excellent idea. I think I'm going to take you up on that suggestion. That's a great idea. Maybe that's how I do my Union Legendary campaign. I don't know. That might get kind of difficult because Legendary sometimes, I think, requires me to restart some battles. So I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you want to see me do as a campaign? You want to see me start a Legendary Union campaign, or you want me to just start doing a live stream with my existing Confederate campaign on a weekly basis? Yeah, I'd love to see Revolutionary War 2. I think there's a lot of Napoleonic games out there. Kingdom Come Deliverance, love it. Just downloaded it. I started playing it. I'm having a lot of fun with it, Ryan. Maybe I'll do a video on that at some point. Fitzhugh Lee is the only man to hold the rank of Major General in both Confederate and United States armies. You may be right about that. Yes, Fitzhugh Lee did fight in the Spanish-American War. Whether he's the only one, I don't know, but that's an interesting question. There were former Confederate officers who ended up back in the Union Army afterwards and fought in the Spanish-American War or even in the Indian Wars. An all skirmishers army challenge. You know, that's actually an interesting thing I thought about too, because you have these You can do custom battles. And so they give you a certain amount of money on this game, and you can build your army however you want. So I've been curious about maybe doing something like that, where you build a really unique force and try to win with it. But you're limited in how many that they give you of different kinds of weapons, so I'm not sure how that would work. But interesting idea. Start from the beginning with a new campaign. Archery, I have not gotten to the phase where I have tried archery in that game yet. I assume you're talking about that new medieval game, Kingdom Come Deliverance. Cool concept. I like that they didn't just decide to do it in medieval England, for example. They decided to go with Bohemia, I guess it's modern day kind of Hungary, Romania, Czechoslovakia, that area. Yeah, so we're winding down here, so I'm really not even paying much attention to it. I'm paying more attention to the chat that's going on here. I guess that's one concern I would have about doing a campaign, is that I might not pay as much attention to it as I should because I'm so busy getting involved in the conversations that we're having. Oh, I took Henry Hill a while ago. Oh, how did they take it? Yeah, they came back and took it back from me because I don't have any troops parked there. Because I kind of lost track of what was going on over there. I was paying attention to what everybody was saying. So we'll ride back up here and get it again. A lot of times on this game you ride past, and especially now that it's getting dark, they sneak back behind you and take things again. My very first campaign I ever did on this game, I think, I had completely routed the Confederate army at Shiloh. I had pulled my whole force down, and I was pushing them down, winning a massive victory, and then he sneaks one unit up and around and takes Pittsburgh Landing, and I lose the battle. Just chill. A chill stream with regular difficulty. I like it. Sir Rommel, I like how you think. I'm kind of curious to go back and do a regular difficulty battle now that I've been playing Legendary for a while, because I feel like it would be easy, and I feel like I could really just have some fun with that. So I like that idea. He didn't fight. He was actually given the initial command, but he was too old to actually take part. I want to say there were other generals that did the same thing, that wanted a commission, but because they were too old, weren't able to fight. So let's take a look at the numbers here. Obviously, I lost a lot of men I didn't need to, but still worked out really well in my favor. 15,000 losses for me, 28,000 for him. So I like how you guys think. I love the suggestions, and I think I'll take you up on that. I think maybe starting next weekend, and maybe I'll try to do back-to-backs. I don't know. What works best for you guys? Is this a good time on the weekend? Joe Wheeler, yes. That sounds right. But I digress. So is Saturday night best for you guys? Would a Sunday afternoon work better? After my son's soccer game anyway. Would a Friday night work best? What night do you think is best to do a campaign like that? And I know some of you, it's not even night for you. But obviously for me, it makes the most sense to do it on an evening in Eastern time. So there's that. What's the 2-to-1 battle? Hey, Rick, what's up? 2-hour streams are usually good, yeah. This one's been a little shorter, I think. We're, an hour and 20 minutes or so. Weekends are good. Awesome. Very cool. So I think more likely than not we'll go with Saturday evenings. Yeah, that seems to work well for everybody. So let's shoot for that. Next question, Union or Confederate? What do you guys think about that? Three other ex-Confederate generals to make Major General. Very cool. Very cool. It's an interesting thing to think about men who rebelled against the country and Lincoln led this, and Grant to some degree as well. They set the tone by saying, okay, these guys are our countrymen again. Let's bring them back together. It's not happened often in the history of the world where people who so openly rebelled against their nation were welcomed back, and a lot of them became governors or senators, congressmen, re-entered the armed forces even. They were all given a blanket pardon by General Johnson. By President Johnson. Union for a change of pace. Yeah, that's kind of how I was feeling, but I don't know. Thank you, Enrique. Am I pronouncing that right? Fredrickson, I appreciate the suggestion. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling Union for a change since I'm in the middle of a Confederate campaign right now. I think that's probably the way I'll go. But yes, the Confederates were the underdogs, and that does make it interesting. Seems we're pretty evenly divided with this. So I guess I'll think about that more. We can argue about that a bit more between now and next week, and we'll make our decision. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Like I said at the beginning of this, I've got some sick kids here. Union Legendary. Oh, that will come. That will come, I promise. But I feel like for a live stream, I just couldn't do Legendary justice because I pay so much attention. My favorite part of the live stream is talking to all of you. And so I wouldn't really give the attention a Legendary campaign deserves if I did that, I don't think. So I'm going to go ahead and go for now. Thank you guys so much. I have a ball with these live streams. It's a lot of fun to be able to interact with you all real time and talk about things as we go along. The battle's almost secondary for me. It's just an excuse to be able to chat in live stream. Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate that. I hope you guys all really enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it half as much as I did, I'll feel like that it was time well spent. So thank you guys. We will see you again next week with a campaign, probably Union, but I'll give you guys a chance to convince me otherwise. I definitely have to pause constantly. Sega Profit, you're right about that. All right, I'm out, guys. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you, sir. Thank you, all of you, for being a part of this, and we'll see you again real soon.